Greetings and welcome back to the Vaults. This is my story about taking a 5th edition D&D game and turning it into a Pathfinder 2nd edition remastered rules game. Today's episode, Raw Stench. We're going to be picking up where we left off last episode, which was creating a brand new homebrewed version of the Xulgath Ancestry. Xulgath is a Pathfinder race, a Pathfinder monster, Pathfinder species, which is a troglodyte. It is a subterranean chud, I guess, although much deeper in the world. My game world, known as the Vaults, is set in a Darkland style, Underdark esque homebrew creation setting, and the Xulgath are a brand new species. Not that they haven't existed in my world, but I just never had a fully fleshed out version that characters could play. But lo and behold, as my new game is restarting shortly, one of my players is like, "Hey, I want to play one of those Xulgaths," and I'm like, "Oh, great! Let me get my notes." So anyway, last episode I went through the basics of what the heck I was doing. So let's pull that up, and here it is. We went through and we took our information from our D&D version of the Ancestry that we had from back in my homebrewed 5th edition game. That was this chunk of stuff here at the top. I then threw in a bunch of lore that I found from Pathfinder, because this is their baby. And I took all that stuff, threw it into ChatGPT, Chatty Cathy, who is my AI muse. I use her a lot, and we had a full session during the last video. We went for a solid hour of dumping this lore, dumping these ideas, going back and forth, clarifying and fleshing out a basic concept for the Xulgath that I could use to present to this player in a few short hours from now. And so what we're currently looking at, that version of it, is what you see here on my screen. If I can scroll down fast enough, you'll see it. There it is. Xulgath Ancestry. So here's what we've got. I took all the stuff that Chatty Cathy produced yesterday, and I organized it into my Ancestry template, which matches the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Ancestry format. And then I did clear up a few things, clarified a couple, more minor issues. And this is where I'm at, and this is what we're going to pick up with today. So here we are. We've got the basic history and lore is this, that these Xulgath, they're descendants of this once advanced civilization. They're reptilian humanoids, devolved due to a cataclysmic event. They were originally dragonborn who, after a war and subsequent exposure to radiation, underwent drastic physical and societal changes. These survivors now inhabit the vaults, clinging to the remnants of their past glory and adapting to their harsh new world. Fairly solid, but also pretty bland. Not a lot of meat there. One cool thing with homebrew, like for instance, if this was going to get published into a Paizo book, that will probably be about the length of the text you'd be budgeted. But as a homebrew, I can put as much lore as I want, as long as it's interesting. It'll be palatable, I think, to the players. So we're definitely going to beef this up to probably like 3-4 times that information. So that's one of our objectives today. Then the perspectives about your race or the species or this ancestry. You might rely on brute force and primal instincts over complex strategy as a Xulgath. You might show a keen interest in mysticism and shamanic practices. You might communicate with a mix of broken draconic dialect, undercommon, and pheromone signals. A couple of those are fine, but they need more oomph, and the last one really doesn't say anything other than those are your traits, so that really doesn't help. So I'm going to replace that. Others probably perceive you as barbaric and aggressive due to your brutal survival methods. Respect or fear your abilities and mystic connections. Find your social structure and beliefs alien and disturbing. Physical description. We need to beef this up, change this a little bit, because this is the actual description of a Xulgath in Pathfinder. And as I went through this process yesterday, I really started latching onto the idea that these are actually more lizard folky. So they're beefier, stockier, bigger. So 5 foot tall, buck 50. That's just not large enough. I think you could have some variants of Xulgath who are the more scrawny sided type. That's certainly fine. But I would like to get a bit of more beef, and that is really inspired by the artwork that was generated when I put this original description and started talking to Sal, who is my other muse. This is my AI artist, Dolly. Dolly and ChatGPT are both packaged together by OpenAI, and I have the paid version, not an advertisement. You can use whatever system you want or not use one at all. That's up to you. I'm just telling you what I used. And I generated this image. And so as I was generating these Xulgath images, they looked very alligatorish, perhaps, lizard folky for sure. And it was giving me these massive ones in the background a lot. And I thought, well, maybe these are just like, you know, they're deities, or not deities, but they're like effigies, they're maybe statues, they're pets or something like that. But as I went through the process yesterday, and you'll see today as we get into the second part here, I'm like, no, that's actually part of their society, their organization, their physicality. So kind of rethought this whole physical description, and that of course leads into society, which this right here is actually not the society that I produced. One second, let me go get the correct one. Be right back. There we go, fixed it. So society wise, Xulgath, they're egg layers. They're born from eggs, so they're living in clutches, varying in size, struggling for resources in the vaults, as most ancestry and creatures are. They exhibit a fierce and often violent social structure where strength and dominance determine leadership. Their civilization, once grand, now survives in fragments, with clutches often raiding each other or external threats for resources and dominance. I definitely want to kind of dive into this a little bit too today, even more than I will show you in a second than I have done with my notes. Beliefs, religion and deities, primary worship, the demon lord Zevgav Izeb, Zevgav Izeb. I guess that's how you say it. Anyways, demon lord. Gods and Magic is where you'll find information about this guy. I have incorporated it into this part 2 a little bit. With some clutches turning to other demon or Clippeth lords. Clippeth, I don't think I incorporated that with any of my note taking, so I might just, maybe I'll go with it. I don't know. I gotta go and research them a little bit more. And then there's Side of the Green Faith, which I don't know if I'm gonna bring that in here or not, because Green Faith is a, Pathfinder, Golarian, I think it's more like a druidic belief, faith of nature, Mother Nature, is my understanding of it. That really wouldn't make sense here in the Darklands vaults Underdark, because there's no greenery. Anyway, Edicts and Anathemas, this is replacing alignment. Strength and dominance are revered. Weakness, cooperation with enemies is frowned upon. Well, probably would get you killed. Then we got some naming strategies here. Guttural often reflect the harsh environment. They got Gorach and Svak, Zrath, Vamk. Is this? Adventurers. This part was left out in the initial run through yesterday. I'm not sure why Kathy missed it. I don't think I really had any leading questions, perhaps. So I got to get Kathy to work on this today. So that, my friends, is where we're at. Generated this from the work yesterday. Now, what else? We've got a basic mechanics for this ancestry. I did change it to rare. I don't think, not that their numbers are few, but just it would be rare for a Xulgath to be an adventurer. So this would be the type of thing that a GM would really have to give consideration to, just given the history of these creatures. 8 hit points, size medium, 25-foot movement speed, ability boost, constitution, wisdom in the freebie, intelligence is their flaw. Undercommon, draconic, probably broken draconic. And then I found, as I was looking into the lizard folk here, lizard folks speak their own language known as Iruzi. And that's actually what they call themselves. They don't call themselves lizard folk. So I'm not sure how deep I want to go after lizard folk, or just kind of stick with the draconic concept, because in the game world, the vaults, these Xulgath, these subterranean lizard folk, these Iruzi, would actually be mutant dragonborn, or what I call worm seed, in the game. So draconic makes more setting sense, but maybe their broken draconic is Iruzi, or they've developed their own language since this split off from the worm seed. I don't know. So that's why I kind of left it in there penciled in. And then pheromonic signaling. So they use their stink, their stench, in order to communicate. It's scent mark, that kind of thing. Traits, there's Xulgath, which, again, a little bit of confusion as far as trait specificity. I don't know if this is super critical, this particular trait in Pathfinder, but for instance, you look at lizard folk or these Aruzi, they have the lizard folk trait. So I have the Xulgath trait, but I don't know if they should also have the dragon or the draconic trait because of that heritage, or the lizard folk because they're kind of lizard folk. So leaving that unknown at this point. A little question mark on that. Need a little more info. And then, of course, the humanoid trait. And then the abilities I locked into and decided, and then I've given these some mechanics here. They've got low light vision, so that's your typical being able to see in lower light conditions. As I mentioned in my previous video, low light vision really isn't special because most every single ancestry I'm going to create that is native or adapted to my game world, the vaults, the subterranean world, is going to have low light vision. So it's not even like this would be like me putting humans have vision as one of their special abilities. No, they can just see. So low light vision isn't anything special. The only time it would be special if I bump it up to dark vision. I've also kind of teased the idea of bright vision as some sort of special ability, but I don't know when exactly that would come up. So I'm going to kind of just leave this as is. And then they have two then unique characteristics, which I feel are the main things that separate these Xulgath from any other species ancestry out there. They've got scales, and I've scaled this back, no pun intended, from the original concept, which was chameleon scales. So they were able to color shift and blend in with their environment. That's still on the table, but it's going to be a later feat that will augment their blister scales. So instead, I stuck with, and you'll see it in the I won't say that my remaster here, but in my session today when we get into how to update this some more with some of my notes and some of my game world specific setting things, I'm gonna be really focused on their origin as these mutated dragonborn, these mutated worm seed that were heavily exposed to radiation, which is known as warp fire in my game world, or blight burn as they would call it in Pathfinder. And it comes from warpstone, which is essentially uranium. So there was a dramatic or a catastrophic event where a bunch of Dragonborn got exposed to this radiation, killed most of them, but survivors, you know, thousands of years later, hundreds of years later, whatever, have evolved into these Xulgath. So I wanted to have that be one of their basic features. They have blister scales, I call it, and they've evolved this ability to absorb and diffuse the deadly warp fire of their home vault of Gluttondark is from Pathfinder. So I think I might use this, although it might be Gluttondark is actually not where they would expose. Home vault of the Desert of Black Sands. Gluttondark is where they currently inhabit. That is a neighboring vault to the Desert of Black Sands. So anyway, their home vault, I might not even put that in here. Their ancestral vault might be a better way of their ancestral vault. Let's call it that. And so because they are adapted to the radiation, they gain fire or poison resistance equal to half their level. I think the poison is, that radiation sickness. It also ties into their stinky, toxic odors they give off. So anyway, they're going to get fire or poison resistance for representing what their scales resist this warp fire. And then stench is their big signature ability, and I got the mechanics partially from looking at Gripply's as one of the Pathfinder ancestries that was available in, I forget which supplement it came out in, but anyway, I used some of that, and then I went and grabbed the main effect from the Xulgath in the first bestiary I think they appeared in. So here is their stench power. As a defense mechanism, Xulgaths can emit a noxious cloud, and this is not once per short rest. That's a D&D holdover. Get rid of that. So here is what it is. Noxious Cloud. It's a 1 to 3 action ability. Here's your tags, Xulgath, Poison, Aura, Olfactory. I'm not sure these are all current up-to-date Pathfinder 2nd edition, but I can double check that. Frequency is once a day. So once per day you can do this as a Xulgath. You exude a nauseating cloud of stench in a 5-foot radius around you. that lasts up to 1 minute and moves with you. You can extend the reach of this aura by spending additional actions when releasing it on your turn. 2 actions will be 10 foot, 3 actions will be 15 foot. A creature that enters the area or starts its turn in the aura must attempt a basic fortitude save using your class DC or spell DC, whichever is higher. On a failure, the creature is sickened 1, and on a critical failure, the creature also takes a minus 5 foot status penalty to its speeds for 1 round. Sickened 1, if I recall, is you get a -1 penalty on, I think, all your die rolls and all your saves and attacks and whatever else. That's what the value means. And I think you have to take a turn to scrape off whatever it is or move out of the area, whatever it is. You got to use an action to get rid of the sickened condition. But while they're in the aura, if they attempt to, get rid of the stuff, they have a -2 circumstance penalty to their saves to recover from the sickened condition. A creature that succeeds at its save is temporarily immune to all Xulgath stenches for 1 minute. So there you go. That's the idea. So once a day, you can emit your stank and debilitate several foes around you. Once a day is pretty limiting, but because you can put this out 5, 10, 15 feet around you and cause a -1 penalty to all these enemies, I think that's kind of powerful. So I don't know if this is OP or not, but that's the starting format for it. And I can also see this as something that, like the blister scales, I can get feats that will amplify it later. Ancestry feats that the Xulgath can choose to make it even more powerful or do damage or something like that, or like a ranged spit attack or something. All right, so that is where everything was after yesterday's session, and I slept on it, and then this morning I got up, I was going over the stuff. I took a few pages of notes as I watched through my video and just jotted down things I wanted to update or change. I made a few changes, clarified a couple things, but that's it. Right now I have a basic ancestry, but I have no feats. I have some heritages kind of thought out, but I need to flesh those out as well. And then I've got a bunch of notes that I want to incorporate into my ancestry. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. Now, before we dive any deeper, let's take a quick look at what what heritage is that Kathy was suggesting yesterday. And I've done a little bit of refinement, but these also need again to be fleshed out. But before I really lock into the heritages, I need to go back through all of this core mechanics as well as the base ancestry lore and such. And then from that, I'll be able to revisit these heritages. But what I'm sitting on right now, there's actually some good ones. I was excited about this. If you saw that video yesterday, there was some good stuff at the end as I was, task mastering Kathy in order to give me better stuff, and she did put out some good, interesting ideas. So here is the sorted out version, refined version of what she was suggesting. So heritage-wise, there's a heritage known as the Blightborn, and exactly what this is yet I don't know. Maybe some sort of cantrip, fiery. But actually, I don't want this to be the demon one. So I think what this is you're going to be born in the heart of the desert of black sands. So this would have been where their old homeland was before it got nuked. You are, loosely say, you are one with the blight burn, which is radiation. So you're going to get some sort of withering touch, perhaps cantrip ability. I got to look up some of the spells. Or alternatively, maybe you're able to add some void damage to your unarmed attacks. Because I do want to have these Xulgath have some sort of like claw attack or something like that. So that could be a feat that they have some unarmed strikes. Again, I don't know exactly what the wording is for Pathfinder, but if you could have a claw attack, a bite attack, a tail smash, or whatever, something like that, these guys could add void damage to it. I kind of like that, but the problem with it is it requires them having, one of those unarmed strikes, which then is a feat, and then it's almost like attacks. So I might just make it if you just attack with any melee weapon or unarmed strike. That could, solve that problem. So I'll just kind of pencil that in. Melee attack or unarmed attack. Okay, some void. So you're like sucking energy, like you're poisoning them. I kind of like that, or maybe it's poison damage. But I like just the withering concept. And these guys are all like kind of maybe shriveled looking. Maybe these are the ones that look like your traditional Xulgath, skinnier, frailer, shorter, just more bony. Then speaking of bony, the bone woven. Something about spirit echoes. You can call upon an ancestor or a defeated enemy. So these guys are wearing. You're wearing bones of ancestors or enemies, like a portable effigy, something like that. And while you've got these on you, you're able to call upon their spirits, and it gives you a bonus, like a +2 to some check or something like that. I don't know. Something like that could be interesting. I don't know who's honking their horn outside, but they need to stop. Then you got the Ember Eye. These are the ones that have the demon influence. I'm going to go out and go yell at somebody. 1 second. All right, it was just the bus driver dropping off some kitties to go across the street, and I guess their mommy wasn't outside to go and escort them. Anyway, Ember Eye. This is the one that has the demon influence. So and again, I'll get into this a little bit later, but there is a demonic or abyssal influence amongst these Xulgath from this explosion that split their world open. And so anyway, demonic influences gives you thermal sight. I want that predator heat vision, right? Like they can see in infrared and track prey even in complete or magical darkness. So it's not, you can't be, these guys can't be blinded by darkness, right? If you're in the darkness, they don't care, even if it's magical darkness, which is blocking, in my opinion, just blocking the visual spectrum. So unless the spell specifies it blocks all electromagnetic radiation, I think the thermal sight would allow these guys to see right through complete darkness or magical darkness and lock in targets. There's going to be a limited range, of course, maybe 60-foot range to this. I don't know. I have to kind of get some sort of perspective on maybe a spell effect that's similar. I don't know if they have spells of, heat sight or x-ray vision or whatever. Then you got your feral hunter, trained in athletics, and they gain the quick jump athletics feat. So they can basically make little like super leaps as a single action. I think it's pretty much like a combined move jump action. Totem Forged. These guys have this whispered omen power, so they are very spiritual, mystical, and they gain sight beyond sight. Exactly what that means, I don't know, but they're able to interpret visions, perhaps. Maybe gives them some sort of augury power. Uh, Bare Bones, they're trained in occultism. And then I was wondering, maybe similar to the other guys who can add void damage, maybe they're able to add spirit damage to an attack, or they have resistance to spirit damage. Spirit damage wouldn't be very useful as far as a damage resistance type because it only would help you if you're able to become a spirit, I think like essentially incorporeal, if I'm reading the description of spirit damage correctly. So and without like a remastered, bestiary to see if monsters are dealing a bunch of spirit damage, like ghosts or whatever, it's kind of hard to say if that would even be useful. So I would like the idea of maybe occultism training and then maybe being able to see signs and it gives some sort of boost perhaps, or I don't know. Haven't really decided exactly what that means. The lazy way is to add spirit damage to an attack, but I already like the idea of the void damage up here at the Blightborn, so I don't want to have two different heritages that are kind of doing the same thing. And then the last one is the Warp Spark. And these guys have these scales that have absorbed, all the scales of the Xulgath absorb this warp fire energy, warp energy, and can store it as they're converting it into a less lethal form, which is what they secrete to make those smells. But anyway, when you take melee damage, you can use your reaction to convert the kinetic energy of this blow that you've just suffered to trigger an unstable warp fire energy to explode from your scales and deal combo fire poison damage to the person that just whacked you. And then I was thinking about tying this into the refocus action. You can get it back whenever you take the refocus action. So rather than, you're going to use it X number of times a day, you got to track that. I kind of like to refocus as a way to limit uses, but also make it so you can use it more than once. So rather than being able to use it 4 times on your, during a single combat, and then you got to wait 24 hours to get it back, you can use it once, and then if after the fight you get able to take a 10-minute break, 10-minute rest, you're doing some exploration or whatever. Well, then you can take your refocus action and get the stuff back. I think that's a fair trade. All right, so that is where we're currently at. So here's what's going on now. I'm going to not get into feats because I don't have any ideas, but I do have a whole list of additions, revisions that I want to make to each of the major sections for this Xulgath based upon I went and watched the video I recorded yesterday, and as I was watching it, I was, sharing some thoughts with you all during my own feedback, but I then took notes about myself, which maybe that sounds weird, but I wanted to use the ideas that I was talking about in the video and the new ones as I was talking. I jotted them down, made a few pages worth of notes here, and then I typed them here because what I'm going to do is the main event. So I'm going to take my thoughts that I came up with that would improve the history and lore. Because remember, I said that I want to make the current history and lore about 3 or 4 times that size. So I've got a bunch of history and lore notes and thoughts and ideas that are based upon my knowledge of my game setting, and I'm gonna put it into Kathy here. So let's do this. We're gonna get Kathy ready. So I'm gonna go and tell her that I want to revise the history and lore section. So copy this. Let's pull up Kathy and switch over here. So I would like your help revising our Ancestry design. If I could type design for the Xulgath. I have reviewed our ideas and came up with some revisions as well as additions. I would like to do this one section of the Ancestry at a time. Are you ready? Let's see if she's in the mood. There's something in the air. All right, she's thinking about it. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and say here is the current version of the history. Boom. And then we'll fire this in. All right, good news. She's in the mood to help us here. So she wants to do this. All right, here's what I did. I said, well, here's the current version of the lore, history. So I popped that in there. Boom. And then I say, here's the list of my edits and additions I'd like you to consider for this final draft. And then here's what I've got. Xulgath, their former Wormseed. Let's make sure that you understand. Xulgath, our former Wormseed Dragonborn that were irradiated by a warpstone bomb into de-evolved reptilian savages. Before being mutated into Xulgath, these former Wormseed lived in a vault that was the fertile breadbasket of the Leviathan Kingdom, a vast expanse of caverns and tunnels under the dominion of Sardior, the Ruby Dragon. That's a D&D holdover. I still will revise that later. This wondrous vault of expansive fungal fields was laid waste by a warpstone bomb detonation triggered during the War of Maul and Talon. That was the fight between the stone races led by the giants and dragonborn Wormseed led by dragons or the Leviathans in the Underdark in the vaults, Darklands. The vault was warmed and illuminated by a large warpstone pocket in the ceiling of the cavern. The stone folk, which are the 3 stone races that allied with the giants, Ganesio, which I have a series about that ancestry I created a few days ago, so check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Oriad, that is the Earth Genasi, the Geniekin of Pathfinder's game world. And then the Droog is my remastered version of the Duergar. And they were led by giant lords who amped this radioactive deposit until it exploded in a devastating airburst. So imagine big old cavern. It essentially has an inner sun, which is this warp stone deposit up in the ceiling, which is this glowing energy, right? It's powering all the fungal growth in this fertile breadbasket, big old prairie, whatever, in the Darklands, and airburst. The vault, its magnificent draconic cities, and the majority of its worm seed inhabitants were turned to black glass and ash, which in modern times is known as the Desert of Black Sands. All that remains of this branch of the once mighty Dragon Kingdom, its grand pyramids, vast plazas, and gorgeous manors, lies buried beneath feet of scouring obsidian flakes and charred bone fragments. That's the Desert of Black Sands. The few wormseed survivors of the apocalypse evolved to resist the lethal toxic warp fire, Blightburn, that polluted the entire cave system for miles in all directions. Their scales developed specialized pigments that absorbed warp fire and diffused it into toxic metabolic byproduct they exude from numerous oil glands lying just beneath their flesh. That explains their blight scale resistance and their stench ability. In addition, the radioactive blast that destroyed their homeland cracked open a section of the cavern floor, tearing a gash so deep it's said to have breached the abyss itself. True or not, since the explosion, fiendish creatures from that fell world have gained access to the vaults here. All right, so that is history lore that I think needs to be in this Xulgath Ancestry that was not in the original. Can you please incorporate these concepts into our remastered vision for the Xulgath history and lore section? Bango. Wango, tango, bango. Let's see what she's going to do with this. And hopefully it's going to be good, because I got to present this to the player in like an hour or two. All right, here she goes. All right, so the details give vivid, rich background, integrating, we can revise, blah, blah, blah. Great. Here's what she's got. Oh, you fucking... 1 second. Hi, I'm back. Everything's cool. Nothing to see here. Anyway, the occasional, little glitch every now and then. All right. Well, I guess we'll never know what she was originally thinking, shall we? Hopefully it's somewhere in here. Yeah, each time you have her like regenerate, she'll do a little bit different, so just be aware of that. All right, so history and lore. Once known as Wormseed, a proud lineage of Dragonborn, the Xulgath were catastrophically transformed into their current reptilian savage form by a cataclysmic event. Their tragic metamorphosis began during the War of Maul and Talon, when their homeland, a lush vault under the rule of Sardior the Ruby Dragon, was decimated by a warpstone bomb. This vault, a breadbasket of the Leviathan Kingdom, was renowned for its sprawling fungal fields and grandiose draconic architecture, with vast pyramids, plazas, and opulent manors. Tragedy struck when the Stone Folk, led by their giant lords, amplified a massive warpstone deposit in this cavern ceiling to catastrophic levels. The resulting explosion obliterated the vault, turning it into the Desert of Black Sands, a bleak wasteland of black glass, obsidian flakes, and charred bone fragments. The once magnificent cities and structures of the Wormseed now lie buried beneath this desolate expanse. The few Wormseed who survived the apocalypse were irrevocably changed. They evolved to resist the Blightburn, a lethal toxic warp fire that polluted the cave system. Their scales developed specialized pigments capable of absorbing the warp fire, converting it into a toxic byproduct exuded through numerous oil glands beneath their flesh. Probably scales. This adaptation was crucial for their survival in the drastically altered environment, now filled with lingering radiation and toxicity. Additionally, the cataclysmic blast fractured the cavern floor, tearing open a chasm so deep it's rumored to have breached the abyss itself. Whether this is true or not, the aftermath of the explosion allowed fiendish creatures from that malevolent realm access to the vaults. This incursion of fiendish forces has further influenced the evolution and culture of the Xulgath, intertwining their fate with the dark powers that now seep into their world. In their current state, the Xulgath are a stark contrast to their noble ancestors, embodying a brutal and savage existence. Yet they carry the indelible marks of their dragonborn heritage and the catastrophic events that reshaped their destiny. Excellent, excellent, excellent work. I think. Hopefully you agree. If you don't agree, throw it down in the comments and tell me why you don't think that Kathy just knocked that sucker right out of the park. That is beautiful, right? So yeah, there's some things I got to tweak there, but come on. So guess what? Here's what we do. Then we go back up to this part, and we're going to go ahead and replace with this new version. So check it out. We went from that little rinky-dink paragraph to wham, bam, thank you, Kathy. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs of good stuff. Yeah, the only thing that needs to be tweaked out of here, it's got to get rid of the name Dragon Folk, whatever. Get rid of that Dragonborn concept, but I do have to go back at some point and get rid of Sardur. But anyway, this is really good. And Wormseed. I think that was the only time I saw it. Perfect, right? She took the original, injected all my new thoughts and ideas, and produced a glorious history and lore. I mean, if you were a Xulgath, think of this as your background now, of your lore, of your story, of your people. You could definitely see you're almost a tragic hero, right? Or a tragic person. Very good. Very, very good. Yeah. Awesome. So there you go. I just updated that. Look at that section. Sorry, I forgot to flip my camera over, but so I got a big old juicy history and lore now. Love it. All right, so now what we're gonna do is the same thing with the perspectives. We're gonna give her the original versions and then throw in some ideas I have from the notes and ask her to revamp that as well. All right, so let's go back over to Chatty. She's so chatty today. Excellent work. We got to prop her up. Excellent work. I'd love to see what you can do with the revision for the next section of the Ancestry, of the Xulgath Ancestry. The perspectives. Typing sucks. Control here. Here is the original. I love watching people not be type. Crap. See, I got over eager. Send the message. Great, please provide me. There we go. All right, so based on the rich history and lore we've established, let's revise. Okay. All right, so she's already revising. Okay, that's fine. I screwed up. I clicked go before I was ready. She's given me her thoughts. I'm gonna let her finish, but I also want to go back to my notes here and pull a little bit of what I was thinking while I had watched the video. So we'll go back to here. She's churn and burn, Mav. Real quick before we lock into a final format, can you take a look at my revision suggestions that I forgot to include for your use? Bang. So here's what I had said. I just wanted to make sure this was in here. They're survivors of a cataclysmic warpfire detonation, so that would maybe make them admired for their raw survival instincts. Xulgath today see mysteries and omens everywhere and in everything. That's, I think, a very important perspective that should be in there. And because they're so prone to mysticism and omen interpretation, They can be easily swayed by strong personalities who use this to their advantage. Many Xulgath have fallen under the sway of powerful chieftains and even outsiders who demonstrate a sign of their worthiness. All right, let me give that to her to consider as well and see if that, you know, I might not even look at what she just typed. Let me just see. All right, so thanks for adding those to add further dimensions to the perspectives, particularly emphasizing their mystical inclinations and susceptibility to influence. Here's the revised version. All right, so let's see what she has. The final version of what's going on. And she already used the revised stuff that we had put in for the lore and history. All right, so you might exhibit instinctive survival skills, admirably rely on innate survival instincts honed in the aftermath of the cataclysmic warp fire detonation. You might perceive omens in the mundane, see mysteries and omens in everyday occurrences, believing them to be signs or portents guiding your actions. You might be easily swayed by those who show strong personalities or mystical abilities, interpreting these traits as signs of destined leadership. You might blend the remnants of your Dragonborn heritage with the new superstitions and rituals born from your transformed existence. I might take this and just fuse it with that one because it looks like she gave me 4, so I'll take it down to 3. Others probably respect your ability to adapt and survive in the face of such transformative disasters, seeing strength in your raw survival instincts. Others probably exercise caution, knowing your actions are heavily influenced by omens and the interpretations of your leaders, which can make you unpredictable. Others probably understand that your deep seated beliefs in mysticism and omens can lead to manipulation by cunning individuals or powerful figures. Intrigued by your unique blend of ancient draconic culture and other often macabre customs that have arisen from your transformation. It's almost like she's written mirror, like perspectives. You might think this, and then others might think the same, but from the opposite perspective. Let's go back to what she was originally saying. Harness the Blightburn. So her original stuff was this: you might embrace the mutated abilities granted by your exposure to warp fire, using them as weapons and tools for survival. Okay. You might construct and worship elaborate effigies made from the remnants of your enemies and the bones of your ancestors, believing them to hold mystical power and ancestral wisdom. Superstition. All right, so here's what I need her to do. I need her to combine these two into one just coherent list. Let's challenge her with that. Can you combine the two different lists into a single offering that has just 3 suggestions of how a Xulgath views themselves and how others, and three suggestions for how others view them. Here are the 2 lists. Bang. And then we're going to take the one we just did. And boom. Here is the second list. Boom. We need just 1 with 3 in each category. See if you can combine some of your thoughts. Pow. Let's see what she's got. All right, so this is where if you screw up, like I accidentally clicked, because you can't just hit enter on your keyboard to get a carriage, return. You need to shift enter to get another line. So I accidentally didn't hit shift. I hit enter. Boom! It sent the thing, and then that just screwed up. And then I forgot to send my stuff. All right, so here's what she came up with. You might embrace Blightburn and omens. Harness the mutated abilities from warp fire exposure and interpret omens in everyday life, seeing them as guiding signs. Fine. Construct totems and honor ancestors. Build and venerate totems and effigies from enemy remnants and ancestors' bones. That sounds good. You might be influenced by mystical leaders. That's true. Others probably view you with awe and caution. You're dramatically transformed. You're survivalist. You have ominous, weird powers. See symbols of tragic past. Recognize the tragic downfall of your once noble race. Be intrigued yet unsettled by your rituals and customs. I think part of this caution might be because you smell, right? I think that definitely should be something. All right, let's grab these and throw them into the Word document that I'm working on. So here we go. We're going to go back up top. Yo, up top. Back up top, perspectives. And we're going to replace this with some new stuff. All right, so you might, rabbit, you might. Yep, let's, okay, I posted it down. Delete this. And then I'm going to paste that there. Actually, let me see if I can get the crap. Can I get the bullet points or not? There we go. All right, so we've got everything here. View you with mixed awe and caution. Regard you with a mixture of fascination and wariness due to your dramatic transfer, survivalist nature, and the overpowering stench you exude even when calm. You know, it's just because you constantly smell. Welcome to the party. Um, so you don't have to be attacked, but you still exude your stank. All right, so there you go. I've got a decent set of perspectives now. All right, let's go ahead and then revise the physical description. Next section, copy this. Let's take it over to Kathy. Let's switch my camera. Okay. Let's move on to the physical description section. I think we need a bit of a dramatic revision here, as you'll see from my suggestions. Here is the current version. Bang. Here are my suggestions. Okay, I'm going to go back over to my Word doc and grab my suggestions, because this is where I want these guys to be more lizard folky. There it is. Pull this and take this over to Kathy here. Boom. So here's what I'm saying. Description: the worm seed's mutation in the Xulgath required the evolution of the Xulgath's two most distinctive traits. The blister scales, which are these iridophores that absorb the radiation, diffuses it to survivable levels, turns it into this toxic, oily, volatile substance that you secrete through your stench glands, secretory organs that process warp fire metabolites and continuously release them through noxious gases that most other ancestries find nauseating. So that part really isn't anything different. But I want them to have a more classic lizard folk look. Stronger, broader than the traditional Xulgath. And then I imagine they might have a Godzilla influence even. So I'm gonna mix our genres here. Boom. Let's see what she comes up with for this. Suggestions you provided offer a vivid and distinctive reimagining of their traits, characteristics. What do we got? Physical transformation. The transformation of the worm seed into their catastrophic evolution. During their catastrophic evolution has resulted in several distinctive physical traits, marking a significant departure from their ancestral form. Blister scales. The most prominent feature is their blister scales. These scales contain iridophores. Yeah, okay. Secretory glands. I don't need really the biology lesson. I need some descriptors. Can you incorporate the biology of their scales and glands into descriptions for their appearance? See if this works. All right, and then it says, in terms of overall appearance, Xulgaths have evolved to resemble a more classic lizard folk. Again, she's not like, give me a description. Don't tell me they look like lizard folk. That doesn't help. And then, okay, she's giving me literal crap. Don't give me literal crap. This is the only part here. No, no, this is terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, this part I can use. Here we go. All right, let's do this. All right, so she's got Xulgaths are covered in distinctive blister scales, visually striking due to their iridescent quality. Their scales shimmer with a subtle, otherworldly glow, reflecting their ability to absorb and diffuse high energy radiation. The scales vary in color and intensity, ranging from deep, radiant hues to more muted ashen tones, depending on the individual's exposure to warpfire radiation. Their texture is rugged and uneven, resembling blistered terrain, a testament to their harsh environmental adaptation. That's good. Integrated within these scales are their stench glands, visible as slightly raised nodules scattered across their body. Perfect. These glands often have a darker coloration standing out against their scales. They continuously secrete a thin, oily sheen, giving the Zolgath's skin a glistening, slick appearance. This secretion is responsible for their notorious scent, which can be particularly strong around these glandular areas. Yeah, don't lick the glands. Beyond these distinctive traits, the Zolgath have evolved a more robust and muscular build. Again, do not compare in lizard folk. Do not say the word Godzilla. All right, so I think I can do something here. So here's what I'm gonna do. Physical description. We're gonna take this section here and here. All right, let's fix this up a little bit. So I'm taking that. I'm going to go over to the Word doc and I'm going to fix it there rather than playing around with Kathy anymore on it. All right, so here we are. We're in the physical description. We're going to get rid of this and we're going to replace it with this new stuff. Physical description. The transformation from Wormseed to Xulgath has resulted in a dramatic evolution, especially evident in their physical appearance, which is marked by unique biological adaptations. Uh, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go. Xulgath have a robust and muscular build. Their physique is broad and strong. Although generally shorter than their worm seed ancestors. All right, so Xulgath have a robust and muscular build. Their physique is broad and strong, although generally shorter than their wormseed ancestors. Gotta go to the Godzilla stuff. I mean, I'm like, hey, Godzilla reference, but don't say it's Godzilla. Uh, the spiny ridges that trail along their spine. How about the ridges that trail along their spine and tail add to their intimidating presence, with each spine looking like a jagged shard of obsidian, a visual echo of their irradiated homeland. Dude, awesome. I'm loving it. Okay, let me pull this up here. All right, so here's what we got. The transformation from Wormseed to Xulgath has resulted in a dramatic evolution, especially evident in their physical appearance, which is marked by unique biological adaptations. Xulgath have a robust and muscular build. Their physique is broad and strong, although generally shorter than their Wormseed ancestors. Wormseed cousins? The ridges that trail along their spine and tail add to their intimidating presence, with each spine looking like a jagged shard of obsidian, a visual echo of their irradiated homeland. Okay, let's get rid of this, move this up. Xulgaths are covered with the distinctive blister scales, blah, blah, blah. I like that paragraph already. And then I'm going to talk about the stench glands. Integrated within these scales are the stench glands, put that. Then we're going to put the head part here. Their heads are reminiscent of ancient lizards with pronounced jaws and deep-set eyes and glow faintly, reflecting their muted lineage. Despite their fearsome appearance, their eyes often convey a depth of intelligence and a hint of noble wormseed heritage. I don't think they look intelligence necessarily at all. convey, their eyes often convey maybe a depth of history. You know, they kind of have just that look of ancientness to them, and a hint of the noble wormseed heritage they once held. Okay, I think that might be a good description. Although I still need the, I still need her to give me a size and weight. All right, can you give me approximate sizes, heights, and weights for these modified Xulgath, both for males and females, rather than telling me about the old Xulgath that they're not. All right, let's see if she can fix that. I like this part too. I think I'm going to grab this. The variations in their scale patterns and colors. I'm going to copy that, take that over to my Word document as well while she's finishing up editing. Their heads are reminiscent of ancient lizards. What's their scales or heads? So I can move the stuff around a little bit, but just kind of put it like there. Scale. I think I'm going to take the part about their heads and move it up here. This. And then I talk about the scales, the glands, and then the variations in scale patterns. I think that kind of goes well together. All right, let's see if Kathy's got a final version for me here. 5'6" to 6'4", that's pretty specific. Range between 260. Can you put these dimensions into a sentence form? And I only need the imperial units. I don't need that newfangled metric system. Yeah, this isn't some scientific document. The Xulgaths, with a robust and formidable build, typically stand between 5.5 to 6'4". That's a little bit specific for males. 6'2", muscular, sturdy physique. I got a physique. Copy that. Okay, I'm going to take that, and we're going to inject this back into the original document. Here we go. Robust and muscular build. Their physique is broad and strong. Oopsie cousins. We're going to paste this. We're going to paste this here. Males typically stand. There we go. Males typically stand between 5'6", 6'4". And females are 5'4" to 6'2". Males generally weigh between 200 to 260, while females usually weigh 180 to 240. So these are some big boys and big girls. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this part. Boom, boom. And I think I'm going to take this sentence and move it down. Their heads are reminiscent of ancient dragon, reflecting despite their fierce spirits. And then I'm going to put this here. All right, so their heads are reminiscent of ancient lizards with pronounced jaws and deep-set eyes that glow faintly, reflecting their mutated lineage. The ridges that trail along their spine and tail add to their intimidating presence, with each spine looking like the jagged shard of obsidian, a visual echo of their radiant homeland. Despite their fearsome appearance, their eyes often convey a depth of history and a hint of noble wormseed heritage they once held. I kind of want to move this to the last paragraph. I like that almost as a closer. I kind of feel sorry for him. All right, there you go. There's your physical description. All right, we got society and beliefs yet to go, right? We still got more to go, kids. I mean, this isn't easy. Okay? Anybody who just says, "Oh, the AI is just going to do everything for you," is not true. Okay? They're not taking over the world yet. All right, so let's go to the next section. All right. This is shaping up very nicely. Let's move to the next section to be revised. The Xulgath Society. Here is the original. All right, I'm going to go and snag the original from the document. Okay, I think I got it here. Paste that. And here are my suggestions for edits I'd like to revise and incorporate. With that, go grab these from my document. Okay, go down here, go get them. Man, we're doing work right now. There's a lot of society changes I want to put in here. Copy this, slap this puppy in here, bang, and then hit go. All right, so here is what I was suggesting. So the original society was just this. The Xulgath live in clutches, they exhibit fierce, blah, boring, right? Nothing there. Here's my suggestions. Thematically, Xulgath can be seen as the bones and stones of Erzul versus the flames and destruction of Zevgav. These are the two deities, Pathfinder deities. They were mentioned in some of the earlier, the religion section that we're coming up to in a second. But I did some research on it, and I'm adapting them here to fit the society and the beliefs section. So starting to mention it here. So part of the Xulgath society is bones and stones. You know, that's the fossilized lord, Erzul. He is the plane of stone, elemental earth's one of the big primordial entities, which would be the equivalent of Ogre Mock from D&D, which was my big bad evil guy in my game. So I'm going to be using Erzul as a reskin here. And then they were mentioning the demon influence with the Xulgath. That is Zevgavzavab. Zevgavzavab. Zevgavazab. Zevgavazab. Could we have a little bit easier name? However, in all Xulgath remains that draconic pride. They wish to restore themselves to their ancient dragon glory from before the warpstone detonation destroyed them. They embrace ancestor worship as seen through effigy creation, which seeks to put flesh to bone, as they would say. An idea that by dressing up the dead, they can restore them to life and give them power to better influence the living. The Xulgath have developed their repulsive stench into an important form of pheromonic communication and scent marking behavior. Compete with insectoid formians, which is another one of my ancestries I need to homebrew still. The Thri-Kreen, for control of the numerous pyramids and temples of the old should be old civilization buried beneath the black sands. These ruins serve as the only safe havens for laying and hatching eggs, which both species use for reproduction. The ancient structure's stone walls have survived in many places and make excellent repositories for warpstone used to incubate the eggs. Both groups are known to hunt the other to drag victims back to their clutches and feed to developing hatchlings destined to become warriors. Within the blasted vault that holds the desert of black sands like a watery oasis, within the black vault that holds the desert of black sands lies a watery oasis known as Gluttondark and serves as the Xulgath's home. Xulgath cook food by exposing living prey to warpfire stones that act like surface microwaves. They blister and char the exterior while leaving the insides dripping and juicy. Mmm. Some tribes of Xulgath have fallen under the sway of demonic forces that have risen from the abyss vents in the floor of their ancient cavern homeland. It's thought these fiends are breeding Xulgath with their demonic blood to create unholy abominations. For what purpose is anyone's guess? But these hybrid Xulgath are ferocious warriors. All right, so then she goes incorporating the suggestions. will reflect their complex cultural dynamics, ancestral traditions, and challenging environment. Here's the revised version. All right, I'm gonna grab this, and then we can read it, see what she's come up with. Yeah, she's digging it. She's into it. Let's go ahead and pop this back over to my Word doc again. So you can see how you can really flesh this out and take a fairly lean, rather uninspired ancestry and create it into something that's just awesome. All right, so here's what we've got. Put this down. Okay, so society. Xulgath society, steeped in the duality of Erzul's bones and stones and Zavab's flames and destruction, clings to a lingering draconic pride amidst their struggle for restoration. Despite their fall from ancient dragon glory due to the catastrophic warpstone detonation, Xulgaths yearn to reclaim their lost splendor. Central to their culture is ancestor worship, a tradition manifesting in the creation of effigies. These effigies, more than mere symbols, are believed to put flesh to bone, a saying reflecting the hope that by adorning the remains of the dead, they can imbue them with life and power to influence the living. So far, so good. Communication within clutches has evolved to rely heavily on their repulsive stench, now a sophisticated form of pheromonic communication and scent marking behavior. This adaptation highlights their ingenuity in turning an otherwise adverse trait into an essential aspect of their social interaction. In the ongoing battle for resources and dominance, Xulgaths fiercely compete with the insectoid Formians for control of ancient pyramids and temples buried beneath the Black Sands. These structures, remnants of a bygone era, serve as crucial sanctuaries for laying and hatching eggs. The surviving stone walls of these ruins are not only protective but also serve as repositories for warpstone, vital for egg incubation. This struggle for survival often leads to brutal conflicts, with each side capturing members of the other to feed to their developing hatchlings. The heart of their blasted vault is the watery oasis known as Gluttondark, a stark contrast to the surrounding desert of black sands. It's within this oasis that Xulgaths thrive, employing unique culinary practices. That's one way to put it, Kathy. Such as cooking their prey with warp fire stones. This method chars the exterior of the food while leaving the interior succulent, a testament to their adaptability and resourcefulness in such harsh environment. Some Xulgath tribes have fallen under the influence of demonic forces emerging from the abyssal vent in their ancient cavern home. These fiends are believed to be interbreeding Xulgaths with demon blood, creating formidable hybrid warriors for unknown, possibly ominous purposes. The presence of these demonic entities and their hybrids adds a layer of complexity and danger to Xulgath society, indicating a potential shift in power and a threat to their long-held traditions. Excellent. I mean, that's awesome. All right, so we got a couple sections left. Beliefs. This should be pretty similar to what we just did. Pop this in here. Awesome. Awesome revisions. I mean, for serious, right? Let's move on to the next section. Paste. Here are my suggestions for revision. Go ahead and grab my info. Back and forth we go, Kathy. We're doing a great job. So yeah, guys, this is the process that I do. So it's not just, all right, ChatGPT, give me a bunch of info. Oh, I'm done and good, right? You need to go back and forth. You need to, use your own stuff. Kathy can come up with some cool things, which is fine, and you can use it. But putting in your own things too is, paramount. I think, because you're the GM, right? You know your game. All right, so here we go. Here are my suggestions for revision. Let me go ahead and fire that in. So this was maybe one of the bigger chunks, because I had to bring in the Erzul, I had to bring in that demon guy, the whole effigies and the ancestor worship. All that is really, this is maybe one of the most religious ancestries I'm creating. So a faction of Xulgath who inhabit the ruins of their ancestral homeland buried beneath the desert sands worships the fossilized king Erzul. He is believed to be the remains of one of the mightiest crystal dragons, a facet leviathan. That's where the facet worm seed are coming from. Who was the lord of the irradiated vault at the time of its destruction. Erzul's spirit was strong in primal force, and it managed to survive the incineration of its flesh, leaving behind only bones aglow with radioactive hellfire. You can see where the bones is becoming relevant. However, he has lost much of his former power and now works to reflesh his skeleton through the efforts of his followers, such as the Xulgath, the effigies. Some say he is also the trapped earth elemental lord Ogremok, worshipped by the Droog of the Black Earth cult, but scholars lack proof as Ogremok is imprisoned somewhere within the stone beneath the vaults. Beyond this, stories of Erzul include he is known as the Lord of Buried Secrets, Earth, and Metal, as well as the Fossilized King. Erzul is a mystery even on Petra. By the way, I took this from Rage of Elements, the the Pathfinder remastered compatible supplement that came out about 6 months ago. So that was in there. I took this from there, and I think there was some of this in Gods and Magic as well. Anyway, few people know his true nature or what form he appears, but he says he's immense, an undead crystalline dragon, so fossils. And so he's like a fossilized T-Rex, huge. An ancient genie wizard, or even a discarded splinter from some long forgotten deity shed before their primeval destruction during the Inception War. That's part of my game world. His power, motives, and origins are likewise the subjects of innumerable rumors. This speculation is all inconsequential to the fossilized king. Even the politics of his plane fall outside his notice. Instead, the Lord of Earth spends his time plotting against his bitter rival, Emiri, the elemental Lord of Fire, who simmers even deeper in the vaults. Again, another primordial I've not yet fleshed out and created, but I could use this from Pathfinder to help. Some Xulgath honor Erzul, whom they view as the fossilized dinosaur, by constructing effigies of bone upon which they add flesh and clothes of fallen enemies and a twisted idea of rebirthing their lord. This dinosaur worship manifests in the living world of the Xulgath as well. They raise mutated leviathans, these crystal dragons, which appear as ferocious dinosaurs from eggs that survived the Warpfire Cataclysm. So if you go back to my picture from the cover art, these creatures in the background are these basically dinosaurs that they are raising, not as pets, but as symbols of their god. Anyway, they're revered symbols, and then kind of symbols of their lost dragon kingdom. So they kind of see them as the new Leviathans. Shamanic spiritualism and ancestor worship abound in the culture. They pray to the bones of the ancient ones, which are just fossils of the dead Leviathans found in the Black Sands. In fact, bones are central to their entire religion, serving as objects of reverence and foci for ceremonies. In their culture, the Xulgath often refer to consulting the bones or throwing knuckles to portend the future or make sense of mysteries. This manifests in their practices of cooking and consuming just the blistered flesh of enemies and prey. This allows them to preserve the bones for effigies that they feel they have power over or can consult or can position within their homes and temples as servants. So this all ties together, right? So you don't have all these just weird traditions and stuff. It all makes sense to them. Those Xulgath that have fallen under demonic influence are known to worship a powerful entity from the abyssal homeworld known as Zevgavzeveb. What is known of this terrifying being can be summed up as he's the glutton in the dark, the demon lord of caverns, reptiles, and troglodytes. This again came from Pathfinder's Gods and Magic, I believe. He dwells at the center of a massive network of caverns called Gluttondark. So I'm having a little bit of conflict between Gluttondark. Is that just this oasis in the Black Sands, which kind of sounds cool? Or is it with this guy's pit? And maybe he is in the Gluttondark and he's deep below and he's luring people down. Anyway, this place is filled with continually warring Xulgath, so those conflicts between the different tribes in the center of the Black Sands Desert, along with more hideous subterranean creatures. He encourages the conflicts to cull the weak and devours all life found within the defeated nations as a price for failure. Largely concerned with perpetual conflicts, Zev seldom seeks to influence the vaults directly, though his Xulgaths routinely commit atrocities in his name, so they're certainly out there as followers. All right, so here's what she came up with for this. Let me go ahead and grab it. Take this information. She is like freaking going off. I love it. She even put in the edicts and anathemas now. Cool. Kathy, you're doing a great job. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this into my document here. There we go. So we're going to replace this little scrawny, that little scrawny input there. Let's beefy. All right, so here's what she's got. Religion of deities, worship of the fossilized king, Erzul, a significant faction of Xulgath in, I keep capitalizing it. In the ruins beneath the desert sands venerates Erzul, believed to be the remains of a mighty crystal dragon and facet leviathan, which is a facet leviathan. His followers, including the Xulgath, endeavor to reflesh his skeletal remains, glowing for radioactive hellfire. Erzul, also known as the Lord of Buried Secrets, Earth and Metal, is shrouded in mystery, his true nature a topic of speculation among scholars, etc. They construct effigies as a symbolic act to rebirth the sky. Raising mutated leviathans. Xulgath raised mutated leviathans from eggs that survived the warpfire cataclysm, viewing them as revered symbols of the lost kingdom. These creatures, resembling ferocious dinosaurs, are central to their aspiration to recreate their ancient dragon kingdom. Love it. Ancestor worship, shamanic spiritualism. Deeply rooted in Xulgath culture is a reverence for the bones of ancient leviathans found in the black sands, seen as fossils of the dead. Fossils of the dead. They consult these bones for guidance and portent, seen as connections to the dead. To the dead would be better. They consult the bones for guidance and portent integrated in the rituals in daily life. Worship of Zev, those Xulgath under the demonic influence. The glutton in the dark. This demon lord of caverns, reptiles, and troglodytes resides in the cavernous network of Glutton Dark, promoting conflict among his followers. His worship is marked by ruthless aggression and sacrifice of life in defeated clutches. Edicts and anathemas. Reverence for the bones. Bones are sacred in Xulgath society, used as foci for ceremonies and objects of veneration. They practice cooking and consuming only the blistered flesh of enemies and prey, preserving bones and for ritualistic and spiritual purposes. Consulting the bones. Consulting or throwing bones is common practice among Xulgath, used to foresee the future and unravel mystery. These bones, often from ancient leviathans or enemies, hold significant spiritual power. Strength and dominance, reflecting their harsh environment and survivalist nature, strength and dominance continues to be revered. Weakness and cooperation with perceived enemies remains frowned upon, though these values may shift depending on the clutch and specific beliefs. The only problem is she really didn't differentiate the two into two lists. Can you split the edicts and anathemas into separate lists? Let's see if she can do that. So I'd like to just kind of keep it, uniform. She should be able to do that. All right, so there's that. I think that's pretty good, right? And then the last thing I really got to do is get into real quick, hey, naming, any new naming ideas, and then answer those adventuring questions. All right, so she's going ahead and redoing. I don't need you to redo the whole part. I just need you to redo just those edicts and anathemas thing. Okay. All right, so then my last thing, like I said, I want to go and see if she has any expansion to naming. I don't know if I had any thoughts on it or not. I'll go ahead and check it. Yo, check it. Check yourself. All right, so she's still working. Let me go and she's about done here. So I'm just queuing up the next part. Let's revisit the naming section as well. Do you have any updated thoughts on what Xulgath would call their offspring, leaders, each other, etc., based upon our expanded understanding of their culture and lore? All right, so I'll get her. Here's the original. Here is the current entry. All right, let her start thinking about that. Here's what she came up with: the edicts and the anathemas. So I'm going to grab this, copy that, take this over to the Word document. There we go. And I'm going to replace this section. I think. Well, let's just see what this says first. All right, edicts. We've got the reverence for the bones. Throw the bones. All right, reverence for bones. Bones are sacred, serving as foci for ceremonies and objects of veneration. Consulting the bones. Consulting or throwing bones is a common practice for overseeing the future or unraveling mysteries. It kind of goes together, doesn't it? Strength and dominance. Strength and dominance are vital for survival and revered as virtues. Anathemas. Trashing the bones. Wow, surprise, surprise. Yeah, for sure. Showing weakness. If you cooperate, perceive enemies as disdain. Neglecting ancestral traditions. Ignoring or abandoning the ancestral customs and beliefs is frowned upon. Yeah, this is, I mean, really didn't do, I'm going to take the original here, because that's fine. That's reverence for bones. We'll keep that. So really the edicts and anathemas that are up here are the edicts that are down here. Right? That's pretty much the same thing. I'm going to take this out, X this out, and then we'll grab the anathemas. Showing weakness. You are weak. Weakness and cooperation with perceived is disdainful. Neglecting your traditions. Desecration of bones. Okay. Yeah, it's like you trash somebody else's effigies. Woo! Woo-wee! That's a problem. All right, let's go see if she came up with anything new for the naming. Back to Kathy. All right, so considering the expanded understanding of Xulgath culture and lore, their names would likely reflect not only their harsh environment, but also their deep-rooted traditions, spiritual beliefs, and their connection to the draconic past. Here's a revised approach. All right, so she's got some interesting info. Let me just see if I had any additional suggestions before I take what she's got and review it. Description, society, beliefs, names. No, I didn't have anything special for names. Okay, so let's just use what she's got here. Naming. Xulgath names are guttural and resonant, reflecting not only the rugged terrain of their habitat, but also their ancestral lineage and the mystical aspects of their culture. The names might include references to their draconic heritage, their survivalist nature, and elements of their worship and spiritual beliefs. Offspring names. Names given to offspring often carry connotations of strength, resilience, or hoped for traits. They might be inspired by the qualities of ancient dragons, mythical figures, or the environment itself. Drakthor, Reescool, Sarth. I don't know if those are actually translated from anything, but apparently it is. Leader names. Names for leaders or chieftains are typically grander, often incorporating elements that signify power, dominance, or spiritual connection. These names might reference ancient deities, powerful creatures, or revered ancestors. Is that Aragon? Zevkor. Tharvax. General names. Common names among Xulgath reflect their daily life and environment. They're usually short, strong-sounding names that carry the weight of their heritage and survivalist nature. Gorax. Skull. Skull. Thurn. Vrax. Izith. Honorifics and titles. Xulgath may also use honorifics or titles, especially in formal or ritualistic contexts. These often denote their role in society, achievements, or their spiritual path. Skulvar, the Bone Whisperer. Droth, Zool, Firewalker. Roxthar, the Egg Guardian. Nice. All right. So yeah, look. I mean, she just went sick. I can use this, right? It's good stuff. Okay, I don't have any reason not to use it. Copy this. I'm not exactly sure where those names got translated from, but they sound, I guess, kind of draconic, don't they? And this is just ideas for players anyway. The naming isn't like the player has to use those names. It's simply suggestions for them or ideas. But I'm going to go ahead and at least include it in this. Boom, there we go. Our new naming conventions are now here. Pretty cool. Go ahead and pop that down on a one page. Okay, great, 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 great. Let's bold these maybe. All right, so that looks more visually appealing. And then the last part is this, which was left out from her initial analysis. Copy this, go back to chatty. All right. The last part of the ancestry we need to flesh out is the adventure section. We didn't do this the first time, so I have no current version for you to work from. However, I do have a set of guiding questions for the sections I want you to include. Paste, punch. Let's see what she suggests. So the first section I'm looking for is, why would somebody, a Xulgath, become an adventurer? Why would you leave your clutch, your tribe, the Black Sands Desert, whatever, and journey to civilization to become an adventurer? What's in it for you? What's the appeal? Especially when adventurers have a short lifespan. What kind of backgrounds, Pathfinder terms, would such an adventurer hail from? What did they used to do before they became an adventurer? And then what type of classes, Pathfinder classes, would a Xulgath be good at, or would you suggest for them? All right, so here's what we've got. Based on the lore, the details, let's create an adventure section. So why would they adventure? Restoration of glory. Driven by deep-seated desire to restore their lost draconic majesty and reclaim the glory of their ancestors, some Xulgath see adventuring as a means to uncover ancient secrets, lost artifacts, or powerful magics that could aid in this quest. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That's true. They want the Dragon Empire that they used to be part of to be reborn, I guess in their own twisted image, though. Escape and exploration. For those who find the rigid and often brutal societal structures suffocating, adventuring offers an escape and a chance to explore a world beyond the harsh confines of the, it should be like the Black Sands. Spiritual calling. Influenced by their shamanic culture and ancestor worship, some Xulgath feel a spiritual calling. Maybe, yeah, maybe the ancestors call it to them. Guided by omens and visions from the spirits of the past. Likely backgrounds. Bone collector, having grown up collecting and venerating the bones of ancient creatures. These individuals have developed a keen interest in history and archaeology. Egg Guardian, tasked with guarding and nurturing the eggs of mutated leviathans, these Xulgath have honed their skills in caretaking and defense. Ritualist, raised in the heart of Xulgath spiritual practices, these individuals have a deep understanding of their culture's mystical traditions and ceremonies. Survivor, those who have endured the harshness of the Black Sands and the constant struggle for resources are hardened and resourceful, making them adept at survival in the most challenging conditions. Suitable classes: Barbarian, raw strength, survival instincts, primal rage. Druid, connection to the primal source forces of nature and reverence for ancient spirits. Makes sense. Sorcerer, they've got draconic, demonic bloodlines, might find a natural affinity for sorcerers. Yeah. Ranger, you're skilled in navigating the treacherous vaults, adept at hunting. Xulgath Rangers are masters of tracking and wilderness survival. Cleric, a war priest, devoted to Erzul, or maybe the demon one there. These Xulgath embrace their religious fervor, channeling divine powers in their quest for restoration and power. I love it. All right, so I think this is all pretty good. The format needs a little work. Just I probably would put it into paragraph form, but I'm kind of at the end of my time anyway. So I'm gonna have to. I got to give my players something, and this is a hell of a lot better than what I started with an hour and a half ago. You guys, holy bejesus, we went an hour and a half. Dang. Adventures. There you go. Right. We've got the mechanics. I feel solid with the mechanics. I don't see anything problematic there. Oop, hold on. All right, so there we go. I just put all that in. So there is the adventuring section. Put all that in there. And then here is the mechanics. I feel good about those. I don't see any issues there. The heritages, the only thing I would like to do, I don't know if she can do it, but I'd like for her to see if she can put mechanics to these things real quick. So let's take one last swing at this and see if she's got what it takes to do this. Okay, there's one last area I need help with, and that is defining the 6 heritages for this Xulgath and defining the 6 heritages for this Xulgath and their respective abilities. Can you provide a brief description for each once I provide the basics, and also put their abilities in mechanical terms that are compatible with Pathfinder to E? Let's see if she's okay with this idea. I'm going to go ahead and paste. Alright, so here's what it is. Blightborn. I'll probably just do one at a time to make this a little bit easier. In case there's something I don't like. The first one is Blightborn. And if you see question marks, it's because I'm unsure of the choice and could use your opinion finalizing it. There we go. Let's see what she's got. Blightborn. Alright, so Blightborn fits well with the lore. Void damage. It's a good idea. Let's see what she comes up with. As a Blightborn Xulgath, you were born amidst the radioactive hellfire of the desert of black sands. Your body is absorbed and adapted to the Blight's corrupting energy, granting you a withering touch that saps the vitality of those you strike. So she's just making this an attack. Okay. Instead of like it adds damage to one of your other attacks, it's just an attack. You just take a swing. All right, that's simple, right? All right, let's go with that one. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and slap that puppy in here as is. I mean, that's pretty cool. All right, let's go on to the Bone Woven. Bone Woven. If you're still with me right now, you are like dedicated. I know this is going way longer than I initially thought, but man, I'm in it and I got to get this done. So I'm just going to keep going. The next heritage is, there we go. Let's see what she has to say about the Bone Woven. Wearing bones of ancestors, enemies like portable effigy. The Bone Woven heritage captures deep connection with ancestors. So fitting can be aligned with the mechanics. So it likes the spirit echoes. All right, so here we go. As a bone-woven Xulgath, you wear the bones of your ancestors or vanquished enemies, symbolizing your connection to the past and the spirits. These bones serve not just as a reminder of your heritage, but also as a source of spiritual power. Spirit echoes, mechanic. You can call upon the spirits of your ancestors or defeated enemies imbued within your bone attire. Once a day, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus on a skill check of your choice. This bonus reflects guidance and knowledge of the thing. Must be relevant to the situation of spirit. All right, so yeah, we'll go with this. It might need to be. I almost maybe throw occult as a training option because this is kind of like one thing and that's it. I'm almost if you should be trained in occultism, that could be sensible. I'm gonna go ahead and paste this. I'm gonna just see what she thinks. Do you think if the woven was also trained in occultism, that would be overpowered? Probably not, but Because I feel like this is like, I get once a day, I get a +2 bonus on something. It's kind of limited, right? So, all right, also train occultism would make them. If the bone woven heritage grants a bonus to skill check and also training, it would make them particularly adept in areas tied to spiritual and ancestral. If the bone woven isn't already trained in occultism, they gain training in this skill. Okay. I kind of like that. You are trained in occultism. If you're already trained, you can, whatever. You can choose a different skill instead. Uh, how would this be worded in PF2E terms? You're trained in occultism, but if you are already trained, ... All right, let's go ahead and grab that. And then while she's fixing that up, I'm going to go ahead and take the next heritage, the Ember Eye, and get that one lined up. Okay. There it is. Okay, the third heritage is the Ember Eye. So here's what I needed. You are trained in occultism. If you're already trained, you instead get a +1 circumstance bonus and involve in communicating with spirits, understanding ancestral lore, or interpreting omens and portents. I don't know. I want it just to be an alternative skill or something like that. I'll have to go manually do this myself then. Because she is just not wanting to cooperate, is she? If you're already trained in all, when you choose this heritage, you may be trained in another skill instead or something that you may choose a different skill instead. Lore. All right, so there we go. We got that. The third heritage is the Ember Eye. Punch that one in there. I can look up the language for if you're trained in a different skill. I have it somewhere else. I just didn't see it in that one. So I'm a little bit surprised that she is not. There it is. I've got the correct language now. I'm having it in my Ganesio. Fix this. Don't mind me while I fix this in the background. The Spirit Echoes ability. Okay, there we go. If you're already trained in occultism, there we go. All right, there we are. All right, so what does Chatty have to say about this current thing? All right, so Ember Eyed. Here we go. We've got, this is the one that gets the heat vision. Thermal sight. Let's see what she's going to say. So, as an Ember Eye Xulgath, you bear the mark of demonic influence in your eyes, granting you the ability to see heat signatures. This unique vision allows you to perceive the world in terms of heat, making you a formidable hunter and tracker, even in complete and magical darkness. Thermal sight. You see heat signatures with a range of 60 feet. Again, I don't know if that's good enough or not, or too good. This ability lets you see living creatures, even if they're invisible or obscured, as long as they emit heat. Thermal sight functions in complete darkness, including magical darkness, but cannot penetrate through solid objects. It allows you to effectively see in conditions where normal vision would be impaired. While thermal sight is effective in detecting living creatures or other heat sources, it does not allow you to discern fine details and is less effective in environments with extreme heat or cold, where everything might register similarly to your heat sight. All right, I don't know if there needs to be any sort of limit on it other than you got it. You got it. Maybe 30 feet. I might make it 30 feet just to test it because, 60 feet's a little bit on the far side, probably. Let's be honest, all right? Let's make it 30 feet. Because you don't want to have some game-breaking going on, right? I see everything. 30 feet's a little more reasonable. And it can still be blocked by line of sight, so I don't think it's too out there. All right, my next one is pretty simple. Okay. The next heritage is pretty simple. Let's see if she can come up with something cool for the feral hunter. Just using her own brains here. Come on, dude, regenerate. Not now. I'm almost done. I'm almost done, girl. Keep working with me. Another error. There we go. All right, she's figuring it out. So while she's doing that, I'm going to go grab the next one to get that one ready. The next one's the Totem Forged. Totem Forged. Mr. Totem Forged. All right, so she's doing it. As a feral hunter Xulgath, you have honed your physical prowess and agility to excel in hunting and survival. Your quick reflexes and powerful muscles make you adept at leaping and navigating challenging terrain. Athletic training. You're trained in athletic skill. If you're already trained in athletics when you choose, you can instead become trained in another skill of your choice. You gain the quick jump athletics feat, allowing you to make a high or long jump as a single action without needing to stride first. All right, go ahead and post this. I'm going to go ahead and grab this. All right, so that is a fairly straightforward heritage, I think, but it is thematic. It does fit with these creatures. These could be some of those skinnier, scrawnier ones as well. Okay, so we got that. Athletic training. Oops. Hold on a second. Let me paste this correctly. There we are. All right, so then the next one is this Totem Forged. Okay, next one. Next one is the Totem Forged. Enter that. See if she thinks about this one. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the last heritage, the Warp Spark. So we have that one ready to go. The Totem Forged heritage, with its focus on spiritual connections and interpreting omens, is a concept rich in flavor, the ability to interpret visions and signs along with connection. Okay. So, let's see what she comes up with. Totem Forged. As a Totem Forged Xulgath, you're deeply connected to the spiritual realm, and your body bears totemic markings that resonate with mystical energies. You have an innate ability to interpret visions and signs, and your connection to the spirit world grants you unique powers. Abilities. Whispered Omen. Once per day, you can perform a ritual similar to the augury spell, allowing you to gain insight into the likely outcome of a specific course of action. This ability does not expend a spell slot, but requires a 10-minute ritual involving your totemic markings. You're trained in the occultism skill as well. See that? I don't want to have two people occultism skill. Spiritual resilience. You gain resistance and spirit damage. Spirit infusion optional. Once per day, you can imbue one of your attacks with spirit energy. What if we do this? Let's just ditch the. Let's try this. We're gonna take all of this, but I'm gonna get rid of the occult part, and instead, what if you can do this whispered omen thing, which is this ritual, which that's maybe they do this once a day. It's not, you can only do it once a day, right? So that's fairly limited, and then include ditch the occult training and instead use both optional. Like if you're resilient to spirit damage, that's when is that going to come up? Probably very rarely. But the spirit infusion is interesting. Like you could do spirit damage. That could be fun. That could be interesting for this character. So I'll put both those in there. And again, if it's OP or whatever, then I can change it later. But it seems like it's not out of the realm of cool or whatever. All right, so that is the fifth one. Then the last one is Warp Spark. The last heritage I need help defining is the Warp Spark. Fire this in there. Now, if you add up all the time, right? Yesterday I spent an hour doing this. Today with this video, we're hour and a half. Because I I rehashed like for the first 15 minutes. So I've spent probably about 2.5 hours directly with Kathy that I've shown you. And then I spent roughly an hour while I was watching my video jotting down my notes. So I've spent about 3.5 hours or so working on a Xulgath ancestry. And I have, I think, a pretty good lore. I've got some really solid mechanics, and I've got 6 really cool, interesting heritages, I think. So overall, I mean, to me, that's kind of worth it, right? If a complete brand new heritage. Now, I don't have all the feats, and there's no way I'm going to get those done in the next whatever, because my brain is pretty much jelly at this point. Besides, I got to get ready to have host my session 0 in about an hour or so. But here's, that's how you do it, right? I mean, that's how I'm doing it, and I'd hate to think how long, say when you do this by hand, let's say, you would have to go and grab all these different, like the way I used to do it is, you'd go and look at the monster manual or the bestiaries and look at abilities that the creatures had. Especially if you're trying to do something like a Xulgath, that's not a PC normal playable race. You'd have to go and find monsters, right? You'd have all these resource books open and all these different abilities and attacks and special abilities and whatever, and have a list and copy paste or retype in them all. And then if you then try to use, let's say, the lizard folk information from the book as your template, you'd have to convert all that. It would take you a heck of a lot longer to take all these different resources, all your different books and notes and Googling stuff and different wikis or whatever, and trying to generate this by hand, from scratch. So I do think with Kathy, the AI, it really speeds up the process because she's able to wrap, like, pretty much all she's doing is she's going through dozens of books at once and generating ideas from them. And then she's taken your pages of resources you're giving her, my lore, my ideas, my questions, and sorting them out into, coherent paragraphs. She's answering questions. She's using the guiding questions to generate novel new creations. So that is the fun and the cool part about this. I mean, even though I spent a whole bunch of time doing it, I don't feel like, wow, that was a waste. I mean, I feel like, dang, I got a pretty sweet ancestry, right? I mean, if you go back and now take a look at what I've got, here is my document now. Here's the Xulgath ancestry, right? Got this, the perspectives, there's the page. I got physical description, there's the second page, 2 pages, society, beliefs, there's 3 pages, naming. I'm on 4 pages now, adventures, 5 pages. I get to the mechanics, like 6 pages. The heritage is 7 pages. The next heritage is 8 pages. So I've generated 8 pages worth of ancestry usable stuff, and I haven't even done the feats yet, right? The feats. I need to generate a whole bunch of feats. What I'm going to start with is just take the lizard folk feats from the Pathfinder Ancestry lizard folk and have Kathy convert those like I did with the Ganishio. I used gnome feats because I think I can grab like 8 or so, 10 feats right there and probably reskin them into some sort of subterranean version. All right. That, mein Freunds, is that. We have spent a good deal of time together, probably more than we wanted to when we first started out. But hey, if you did stick around, bless you, sir, ma'am. You are a rock star. I appreciate the support, though. Following along. So speaking of, if you haven't subscribed, you haven't liked, you haven't notified, go ahead and do that. That helps me to know what stuff you want to see more of, what stuff you think is pretty cool, you're interested in. If you have any questions, of course, use the comment section to respond or, fire away. If you think some of the stuff is ridiculous or OP or whatever, let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. In the meantime, have yourselves a good night and wish me luck, because I got me some eager players that are ready for do Pathfinder 2E, and I barely know what the heck I'm talking about. All right, have a good night. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.